2019, at the height of travel and tourism surge pre-COVID-19, the industry accounted for $8.9 trillion in contribution to the world's economy annually. That is more than 10% of global GDP. More importantly, the industry was able to create more than 330 million jobs, which is 1 in 10 worldwide pre-pandemic. If you really think about those numbers, it means that if you are online at the grocery store with 5 people in front of you and 4 behind, at least one of you make their livelihood because of the travel industry. It means that if you go to a baseball game or a football game and 40,000 people are in the stadium, 4,000 of those people are able to put food on the table because of the reach of the travel industry. The industry's impact touches all corners of the global economy, connecting people from all walks of life with friends, family, colleagues, cities, countries, and destinations that they otherwise would have no connection to. While it is estimated that the industry has lost or could lose more than 100 million of those jobs because of COVID, it is important now more than ever to remember the faces and the names behind those numbers, the ones who worked to build and will now have to work to rebuild the industry. Those individuals and those people whose lives and careers are built around their own love of travel, their love of introducing people to the things that have made their own lives special, they are the subject of this new check-in podcast by TMR. The podcast is an informal look into the lives of people making travel dreams come true, the ones working inside and outside of the travel trade to move things forward for 300 million people or so working within the industry, along with the rest of the world's population who are able to enhance their own lives and their connections because of those people. We'll have regular episodes bi-weekly featuring a variety of people who have been kind enough to volunteer their time, their expertise, and their personal stories. We'll do our best to provide you with a wide range of perspectives and conversations that we hope will entertain you as you work in your office, as you drive your cars, as you jog through your neighborhoods, or as you board airplanes and take off on your own adventures. You can download the podcast on all major streaming platforms and check back in regularly for more content as we continue to move further and further outside of this pandemic. Before I leave you today, I want to add a short preview of the podcast, a couple of clips from the first 2 conversations that I was fortunate enough to have. I want to thank you for your time and your attention ahead of schedule, as we've learned, especially during this last year, how valuable those things are. So, here's check-in. Have you ever considered, maybe this isn't the industry for me going forward, whether it was in the last 12 months or, even before that, because, we all know this isn't the first crisis the travel industry has faced?
It's a great question. Yes, I do think this is the right industry for me. I believe travel and tourism, it gives you experiences that you'd never have before. And I love to fly. I miss taking off still at the end of a runway. And when the plane breaks through the clouds and you just sort of soar, to me, that's magical. But I loved looking at planes when I was a kid at the end of a runway, which I used to do with my grandparents out in northeastern Iowa. I love having global friends that you can pick up where you left off. And I've had this time to connect with people that go back 30 plus years and gone through many different careers, but we still have that commonality of friendship and integrity, and we can pick up where we left off. I definitely have the desire to explore. I miss traveling, and I recently pulled together the number of states I've been to and the number of countries I've been to, and I have a hit list of where I want to go when things reopen.
Yeah, what's the hit? So do you have the totals in front of you? Do you remember what they were?
Yeah,
the ballpark?
I can pull that up. That's easy.
Yeah.
I'll do that while we're talking.
Yeah.
But I think most importantly, I like to serve. And what I've realized is travel and tourism and hospitality, it's all about service to someone. And people need advisors because they need to aggregate information. People want to serve. I think a lot of people who were questioning why they had the travel bug, if you didn't have that desire to serve, you couldn't make it through this year.
And I wanted to ask you this because I was talking to Jennifer Wilson the other day, and we spoke about her career, and she had a direct line to the travel industry with Valerie. And she's sort of taken that and run, and she's sort of this force in the industry now.
Yeah.
But your line to the travel industry wasn't as direct at all. And you mentioned, I guess you were playing football was it at University of Nevada, Reno, right?
It was, yeah. That's where I came from. Yeah, and Jennifer's fabulous, and again, you're right. In many ways, probably our line couldn't be more opposite because, I grew up in kind of your standard, I'll say suburban of the '60s and '70s, and the longest and biggest trips we ever took were in the back of a station wagon. You pile the kids in there, you roll around, you scream at each other, and you go a couple days in a car, and that was really it. I mean, I think I'd gone to 3 states by the time that I graduated college, right? And I think I stepped foot one day in Canada when I went to Victoria on a ferry, but that's it. And there wasn't any burning desire for me to do more. It was just what we did, and it was most kids that I grew up with. A kid who went even to another state was considered like, oh wow, and of course Europe was just not even thought of. So it was just not something that I thought about, and that went all the way through college, and then. It was after college that actually I had a couple of my buddies who graduated a little later than I did, started calling me saying, "Hey, we're going to do the backpack through Europe thing," and I really didn't even have a clue, what that was or any burning desire. But they kept saying, if you don't do it now, you don't do it now. And I kept saying no. I had I'd gotten into real estate at that point, and I was actually doing pretty well, and business was just starting to take off. It's a momentum business, like somewhat like the sales business of travel. And I ended up taking a 3-month leave of absence. They finally convinced me, and I thought, all right, I'm going to take a 3-month leave of absence from my real estate business and do this travel thing with a couple of buddies. Well, I ended up coming home 3.5 years later, Daniel. So
Oh my God. Wait, how did you spend 3.5 years when all you brought was a backpack to Europe?
Yeah, well, and then for those 3.5 years, I didn't live out of much more than a backpack, quite honestly. But it was a very long story, but I'll give you the short summary.